So they're off to recess. And when they come back, they're going to find on the board 3 questions. You see them right there? So you're going to write those on the board during recess. Okay, so when you come in today, we're going to do this. It's on the board. So when the kids come in and I'm at the door, what I'm going to say is something like, okay, put your materials away, turn your homework in over there, look at the board and do what it says. And then on the board, it'll have some kind of instruction, okay? And the great thing is that it actually saves time. I mean instructional time, like the kids get started faster, okay? You're gonna put those on. Let's go on to the next page, on to page 13. I'm gonna look at this graph the class activity, which you should have. This is a bit of a tricky assignment. You need to really follow it through, and when you're actually using it with your class, go over it again. It's a great way to get a quick assessment of the kids. You will be able to use that as a baseline for report cards, okay? You'll be able to look at this and it'll remind you of what your kids were like at the first week of school, okay? And it's also a great way to get the kid to teach following directions, and I'll talk about that in a bit, okay? So when the kids come in, you're going to say something like, sharpen your pencil, look at the first question on the board, and don't tell anyone what you think, okay? So the first question on the board is, how many people in this room do you think have a pet, right? Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple data table, make a T-chart, and we're going to put 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20. So we're going to have these groups of numbers here on the board, and basically I'm going to ask the class, how many people do you think in our class have a pet? So let's take a look here. We're going to do the same thing. How many people do you think have a pet? Take a look at them. Do they look like nice people? Do you think they have pets? Okay. So how many think? And we're going to count each of us as threes. Okay. So multiply by 3. Right? Okay. So how many people think that there's between 0 and 5 people with a pet? Okay, nobody. So I'm going to put 0 here, okay? How many think it's between 6 and 10 of you have a pet? Okay, so you have about 15 people, okay? How many of you think there's between 11 and 15 with a pet? Okay. How many think there's between 16 and 20 with a pet? Nobody. Okay. All right. So what I've done is we've created a data table of that result. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to take this and we're going to use a graph. What graphs do is they make patterns visible. Math is all about patterns. 2, 4, 6, 8, 5, 10, 15, 20, right? It's all patterns. And what graphs do is they make number patterns visible. Okay, and our brain is very good at recognizing patterns. For example, this is a pattern, right? It's quite a complex pattern. If you tried to do this with numbers, it would be very hard, be complicated to figure out that there's actually a pattern in this, what you're seeing here, right? But visually, you know, okay, it's a mirror image, right? It's very easy for us to see that, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to use the graph to help us see patterns, okay? So we'll just do that right now. Okay, so we're going to take this, and what I'm going to get you to do is we've got 0 to 5, and so with your pen and with the kids, we'd use a felt, okay? So what we're going to do is we're just going to draw a line on the bottom here. 0 to 5, we have 0 people, okay? So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to draw along the bottom here. Just one line. And I'm going to say to the kids, don't go ahead. All I want you to do is draw that one line. Okay, and I'm going to go up and down to make sure they didn't put it in the middle of the space or whatever. Okay, just that one line. And then I'll go to the next one and draw the second column. Okay. Okay, so I just have them outline step by step the second one. And then I'll go to the third one. And again, I'll walk up and down the rows to make sure that they're doing it right. Okay, and I've got my third one, and then we'll do our fourth column. Okay, so then we've got this column. Okay, so we've created the graph. Then I'll get them to get their newly sharpened pencil crayon and just lightly shade it in. We don't want them to fill in with a felt, but guaranteed someone in this class, by the time you've got it here, is going to start to fill it in, right? So if you see that, it's a great moment. You're going to go around to that person and you're going to say, can you erase that? And he or she will be getting the eraser. Oh no, okay, don't worry. On the back, you've copied exactly the same graph. It's the same on both sides. So that instead of, and you basically say something like, don't worry, I've made a copy in the back. Just start over and catch up with us, okay? The point is, what you're trying to illustrate is, if you follow directions, you don't have to do it again. But also, I've planned ahead and I'm helping you catch up, okay? So it's not about you did that totally wrong, that was dumb or anything, follow directions. It's more implicit, okay? So we're going to create the graph. Okay, so now we have the graph done, and I'm going to try to get the students to give me a statement. Okay, so for example, one thing I could say is none of the students in our class think that between 0 and 5 people have a pet, right? Nobody does. What other statement could I make?
14 students think 11 to 15 people have pets.
Yeah, okay. 14 students think that between 11 and 15 people have a pet. Okay, so I'll write that out. Okay, and once we have that, then I'll say, okay, go. You're going to write it right where it says statement here. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to ask, what about this? What about the axis label? What does the axis mean? What does it mean when we're saying 0 to 5, 6 to 10? What do those numbers mean? What is it? Yeah.
The number of pets.
It's close to the number of pets. Estimated number of pets. Okay, good. Yeah. So then on the board, I'll write out estimated number of pets, and once it's complete, you notice what we're doing is we're shaping the language. Okay, we started with one, we get a little bit of improvement till we got a nice clear sentence. Okay, then we write it. Then I get the students to write the whole thing. Okay. So what about the numbers on the side? What about the numbers on the side? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As we go up this way. Or 2, 4, 6, 8, or whatever you had to do there. What are you going to do? What do those numbers mean?
The number of students.
Okay. The number, can you tell me a little more? Number of students?
Who guessed?
Okay. Or predicted? Yeah. Okay. The number of students who predicted what? The number of pets? Okay, something like that. Okay, so we create a sentence to describe this. Okay, now was that obvious? Was it easy to do that? Create that little sentence? It's not, right? It's not very. It's because the prediction part makes it kind of tricky to express that, right? Well, the interesting thing is that I've done this a lot of times in teacher workshops and so on, and guess what? A grade 4 class is about, grade 4 or 5, I've never taught straight 4, a grade 4 or 5 class is about as fast as we are. And I'm saying we, because the first time I did this with my class, I actually hadn't planned it out, and I was doing this, and what is that? I had trouble coming up with it in front of the class. Okay, here's my message out of that. Actually, it's not that anything against you. What it is that students in grade 4 or 5, even grade 4s, by Christmas have adult level horsepower. Grade 4, 5s, intermediate students, that's one of the great things about teaching intermediate students, is they have adult level horsepower. They don't have adult level skills, don't have adult level vocabulary, etc., but they can think at a very high level just as much as us. Okay? And that's a good thing to keep in mind, and be respectful of those kids and challenge them too, because if an adult can do it, they should be able to do it, provided you've given them the skills, right? Anyway, so actually, believe it or not, kids are just about as fast as Start Up Your Class workshops at doing that particular thing, which was pretty amazing for me at first, but not so amazing after I thought about it. Okay, and then finally we'll do a title. Okay, so what might we say as a title? See, it's not that easy, is it? Yeah, go ahead. Could just say, let's be a little more detailed about that. Pet predictions are going to be something like the number of what? Say again?
People who own a pet.
Or the predicted number of people who own a pet? Sure, or the number of people. Yeah, that's something like that. Okay, so the point is we're creating quite a complex sentence, right? Requires pretty high level abstract thinking to do that kind of thing, right? So we're going to go through, we do it with pets. We do it a second time with TVs. Repeat exactly the same process. This time the kids have been through it once. They'll be able to give you more responses faster, and their sentences will be better and so on, but we'll still go through writing it on the board and getting them to do it, okay? And then we'll give them the third one and ask them to just do it on their own, okay? So they're going to we do it together, and then twice, and then they do it. Okay, and it's that third one that we're going to look at and collect. Okay, now there's actually two different forms. If I look at this one here, this is called black line number 2. Okay, and it has the pets already written in it. So that's the one you're going to use first, and you're going to write pet on the back, so that if the kids that make a mistake, they can just turn it over. And then the next one. The next one is going to be this shape, and it'll be black line number 3, and it has the same one on the back too, because you're going to use one for the second question and one for the third question. Okay, so then you're going to collect them up in our envelope. Okay, just like we did before, and we're going to look at it after school. Okay, when you look at it after school, you're going to look at the first 10 or 12. Really carefully, a couple, 2 or 3 minutes each, and then go back to the first one and spend about 30 seconds or 60 seconds on each one. And when you look at these students, you need to come up with a couple of phrases. And so what I suggest is that on this same sheet that you used for other things, on the right-hand side, you've got space to put a couple of words. So I'm going to put down maybe neat, or I'm going to put fluent, or I might put something like ESL, okay, and put those down here. By the way, when I write a word on this, on my class list, it means it's a problem. Okay, ESL would be sort of a problem. If the student is very fluent, then what I do is I just underline it. It's better than saying good fluency or something like that. So an underline is just kind of my code for that's a good comment. So I can put like number facts. And if I underline it, they know their number of facts, something like that. It's just a system I use that you might want to look at. Okay, so what you're going to do is get a sense from these students of their thinking and some of their writing and so on. What were some of the things that when you looked at some of the pages, what were a couple of things you noticed about one of the students? Who's got a couple of comments about them? What did you notice? Okay, so handwriting would be one thing. I could make a column and record, yes, they're able to handwrite, or I even put a score, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that, telling me if they're able to do that. What other things did you notice in there? If we look at Harry, for example, what do you think about Harry if you've got one of Harry's pages? Yeah, so Harry's got some a little bit of a challenge with this, a little bit of spelling, which is not in itself critical. But when you take the whole page together, it looks like he's got some errors in doing the graphing, so maybe didn't quite understand the instructions and so on. Remember, they've done it 3 times, right? So yeah, ESL is a good guess with Harry. So on the right-hand side of the page here, I might put ESL question mark. Okay. What else? What else can we talk about? Any other student that you noticed? A complete sentence would be one thing I'd certainly look at. A sentence and then underline it, right? Or, okay. Also, grammar errors. If you notice those kind of things. By the way, if you see spelling errors, what I do instead of saying spelling, which doesn't tell you anything, write the exact spelling that they use. Okay, the exact student-invented spelling that they use. And basically, you'll start seeing patterns in those, and that tells you, okay, I've got several kids who have got that same spelling pattern. Great, I can have a little mini group and work on that particular thing. It's a great way to do your spelling. Okay, so what you're doing here is getting a quick assessment of the kids in a little bit of detail about them, but what you're looking at in the bigger picture is, what's this class like? What are they capable of doing? And especially any that's really stand out that you might want to talk to learning assistants about or check the files of and so on. Okay? So we've collected the papers, going to put them in the envelope, and we'll look at them again during report card time as a kind of a baseline, and then review it after school. Now, page 14, at the top of the page, you'll see I, we, do. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to just fill in the rest of this little phrase. I do it, we do it, we do it, you do it. And this is the phrase that I use. It haunts me. It's the one that I use as sort of my quality measure for good lessons. You probably know this by university kind of language. So I do it is teacher demonstration, right? Teacher demonstration, that's I do it. You do it, what is in university language, what is you do it? Independent practice, yeah, okay. So what are the middle ones? We do it. What's the university language?
We do it together as a class.
Yes, there's some jargon that universities use, like guided practice, for example, would be one, right? So having lessons that where I demonstrate it, where we do it together, and then you do it, which is what we just did with that graphing activity. Okay, I showed them how to do it, then they did it, or we did it together, rather, we did it together, and then they did it by themselves. That is, I think, it's my sort of model for what a lesson should be. Now, it's a very, very challenging model because if you have to be very efficient at each of these. Otherwise, you spend all day getting one lesson done, right? To get all kids going so that there's what you might say entry points for all. So every kid has something they can do, but you're still challenging the good kids so that when they're actually doing it the third time, the good kids are, Mr. Myrtle, we've done this twice, So you need challenging and rich activities that have entry points for all, and that's not easy, okay? And doing them smoothly so that you can get the class going and then help those ones and pull those kids along that are struggling, right? Because if you don't pull them along, guess what? You get to reteach them all year, right? So this is where the payoff comes if you can do it. But it's a very challenging thing. So it's sort of my gift to you is when you're retired, I hope you might think back, oh, that Ray Myrtle, he told me that I do it, we do it, we do it, you do it. And if you use that and check yourself to, am I doing that? Or at least try to do that as much as you can. What you don't want to do is teaching by mentioning it. Just I do it and expecting people to learn it, right? I do it, you do it. That's pretty common. We have to do stuff. But the more we can get into that middle level, the better. Okay? So, and I like it because it's a nice, clear, simple poetry, if you will. So we've got teacher modeling, guided release, and independent practice. Okay? So most intermediate teachers will say that we should do more read alouds. Those primary teachers are so fantastic at teaching with read alouds. Most of my colleagues, we say we should really do more than we do. And for beginning teachers, read alouds are even more important. They're more important because a read aloud is the least prep language arts lesson you can do. Okay, you read the book, you write in the book different questions as you come along. What do you think he's going to do next? Why did he do that? Why did he say that, etc. And then you do story time, right? You have the kids together and you tell them the story, and they think it's not even school. They're not even working. But actually what you're doing is you're asking them lots of questions, you're asking them to discuss, and so on, okay? So a read aloud is just really a great language arts lesson, and I used to do it basically until I was exhausted, or the kids were exhausted. I would do it 45 minutes or an hour, and a read aloud, one of the great things about a read aloud is the lower the level or socioeconomic level of the class, or the lower the reading level of the class, the more important read alouds are, because they make literature accessible, right? Why bother going to the work of reading if it's not fun to read the story, right? If the stories themselves are not fun. And if you're telling the story and it's an enjoyable story and the kids want to, then they're going to be motivated to read themselves. Okay, so read alouds are an excellent thing. And when I'm asking the kids a question, I'll have my little clipboard, and as the kids are answering, I'll be making little comments, or I'll have them talk with each other while I make comments to them. Okay? Now, I mentioned earlier about teaching routines and so on. We're going to go to gym in a bit in the day, and so when we're going into the hall, I'm going to teach that. I don't believe in marching the kids down the hall. I think if kids can walk down a mall, they can walk down the hall, right? But that doesn't mean I'm just going to say, okay, off you go to music. No, we're going to go down together. I'm going to stop them in front of Miss Smith's room where the door is open. I'm going to say, you see, Miss Smith's door is open. If she closes her door, we've been too noisy. Okay. So, and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to make sure those kids, or stand there and make sure those kids go past that door really quietly so that she doesn't close her door. And if she does, we're going to go back and practice a couple of times going down the hall. Okay, rehearsing going down the hall so that we do it quietly and don't disturb other classes, okay? So there's a couple of other things on page 16 about getting outside and getting some oxygen basically through a circuit. And let's take a look at the next one is a name tag. So basically, in this activity, what we're going to do is we're going to take that name card, that card that we had, the big recipe card that we gave out on the first day, and basically we're going to turn it into a name tag, okay? And basically what they're going to do is do bubble letters, okay? So during class time, what they're going to do is get a felt, or a Sharpie if you wish, and they're going to make bubble letters. So I'm going to show them on the board what bubble letters look like. They're round and they overlap each other. It's basically all there is to it, okay? And it needs to be big and it needs to be in the center of the page, basically. So I might give them a piece of, just ordinary scrap paper, to cut up a piece of paper about this big and let them practice a bit first before they do it on their card, right? And they'll get that. Once they've got their name finished, basically, then the second thing they do is they use a ruler to make a kind of a pattern, sort of like a church window, okay? And they're going to color that with a pencil crayon, okay? So basically, I have a few basic criteria. They're written in the book. Bubble letters, do the bubble letters with felts, use a ruler for the background, and use a pencil crayon in the background. Again, use the side of a pencil, not the tip. Okay, use the side, not the tip. And so they're going to do the coloring on their own, either as homework or just in free time. Okay? So that.